Well, hello everybody. My name is Roger and welcome to my channel, Rogers Reads. So, since I just started this channel only in March, I decided to do a best reads of 2018 video highlighting the best books that I've read so far this year. Now, I've decided to do this in two parts. So the first video will be my first top 5 books, and then the second one will be my next 5, maybe 6 top books. The first book that I want to mention that I read this year is Simon versus the Homo Sapiens Agenda by Becky Abertalli. And this book is actually going to be made, has been made into a movie that's supposed to be released within the next couple of weeks in March of 2018 here. So I'm really looking forward to seeing it. Well, anyway, this is a wonderful story about a teenage boy who has to deal with the aftermath of coming out to everybody at his high school when another student finds out his secret and threatens to blackmail him. So the moral here is never leave your computer unattended. And this is exactly what happened to the hero in our story, Simon. He wanders away from his computer for a moment, forgetting to close down his email program, when another student, Martin, who turns out to be quite the jerk, walks by Simon's abandoned computer and discovers that Simon has been anonymously corresponding with a boy named Blue, and the two of them have been discussing their lives, including the fact that they're both gay. So Martin takes a screenshot of Simon's emails and ends up blackmailing him. Now, up to this point, Blue is the only person who knows that Simon is gay, and although Blue goes to the same school as Simon, neither of them knows the other one's identity, thus creating a safe atmosphere through these emails that they can discuss those serious issues that they can't really talk about with anybody else. I actually loved reading the email exchanges between Simon and Blue, especially once they became more flirtatious. There was a teasing yet a caring tone to them that led to an amazing build-up between these two characters that wasn't rushed or forced. So, of course, Simon's secret gets out and he's devastated. Now, I'm not giving any spoilers out here. This is actually in the book blurb. So, within one day, everybody at school learns that Simon is gay. And given that we know Blue goes to the same high school as Simon, it's not too hard to figure out that he's probably figured out Simon's identity as well. In fact, during one email exchange, Blue states, "I think I know who you are." Of course, Simon still doesn't know the mysterious Blue's identity. It's kind of amusing to observe Simon as he studies the boys at school, trying to figure out which one of them could be Blue. He finally thinks he narrows it down to 2 boys. Now he just has to figure out which one it is. So, but we do end up, of course, learning Blue's identity, leading to a sweet and tender scene in the book. I absolutely loved this book, and I gave it 5 stars. Now, the next book is called The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue by Mackenzi Lee. Now, I can't begin to express how much I love this book. This isn't just an LGBT romance. Rather, it's a wild, adventurous, and often harrowing romp through 18th century Europe, and just a lot of fun. So the story takes place around 1720 and revolves around a young man named Henry Montague, also known as Monty by those close to him. And he is the spoiled, self-centered, reckless, and flirtatious son of Lord Earl Montague. Now, in addition to heavy drinking and gambling and being, shall we say, overly generous with his affections, Monty is also known for bringing both the ladies and the lads into his bedroom. Quite scandalous behavior for 18th century England, given that sodomy was still illegal and severely punished during this time period. Now, there's also a boy that Monty is especially sweet on. The only thing is that this boy does not know how Monty feels. And perhaps fearing rejection, Monty has no plans on telling him. So as such, a good part of the story revolves around Monty's longing for the sweet and mild-mannered Percy. and the slow-burning romance between the two of them. So after a brief introduction of the characters, the novel really begins to take off as Monty's younger sister Felicity, and Percy are about to embark on a tour of Europe. Now, while on tour, Monty gets invited to a fancy party one night at Versailles, where he quickly makes an enemy of the Duke of Bourbon. The evening ends with Monty running naked through the gardens of Versailles, being pursued by palace guards. It was quite an amusing scene. And this is actually when the fun really starts. So the next day, they hurriedly blow town to avoid any fallout from Monty's ungentlemanly-like behavior. And their carriage is stopped by bandits, who we learn later are actually King Louis's men, who are pursuing them because of an innocent object that Percy stole the evening before from the Duc de Bourbon's office. So the three of them are on the run. And from here they get captured by pirates, encounter murderous alchemists, get arrested, end up on a sinking island, and even encounter a zombie-ish character. But to go into any more detail would dangerously head into spoiler territory, so I don't want to do that. But let's just say that the novel transforms into a nail-biting, page-turning, heart-in-your-throat ride at this point, and we learn that nothing is quite as it seems, especially in regards to our three characters, and there are quite a few surprises in store for the reader. So all in all, The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue was a delightful and beautifully written story with excellent characters, a perfect pacing, and an ever-twisting and surprising storyline. This was a most exhilarating journey and one that I'm grateful I took, and this was definitely another 5-star book for me. So the third book I want to talk about is entitled History is All You Left Me. Now, if you're looking for an author who will rip your heart out from your chest and make you cry, then SIlvera is your man. I knew going in that History is All You Left Me would be a heartbreaker. But I was amazed at the intensity and range of emotions that I experienced while reading this exceptional story of the love, the loss, friendship, grief, and hope. Now, I don't want to give the impression that this book is one huge downer, because it's really not. There's so much more to it. So the story opens up at the scene of a funeral. This is told from the first-person point of view of 17-year-old Griffin, and we learn that the funeral that we're seeing is that of his ex-boyfriend and first love, Theo. Now, what's interesting about this book is that the chapters alternate between present day, meaning the funeral day, and the following days afterward, and the story of Theo and Griffin's history together. So via the history chapters, we learned how they became friends, how they fell in love, and how they both came out to their parents together, the first time they had sex together, and the reasons behind their breakup, all leading to Theo's passing. Now, alternating the chapters between the past and the present like this provided a nice balance to the story, I thought. So in one chapter, we read through grief and pain, while in the next chapter, we experience the exhilaration of an exciting first love. The author did an excellent job with this, and the past and present method of storytelling really worked well for me. Now, Jackson, who was Theo's boyfriend during the time when Theo died, surprisingly reaches out to Griffin, and an unlikely friendship develops between the two of them as they share memories of Theo and end up supporting each other throughout the grieving process. As we experience Griffin and Theo's past, we expect a simple and tender story of two boys falling in love, resulting in ultimate tragedy. But there's much more to it than that. There was one huge surprise twist that I did not see coming. Additionally, the mystery surrounding Theo's death finally comes out in the open at the end of the book. So I ended up loving this book. Now, I was initially hesitant going in. I mean, who can approach a novel about death, grief, and pain without more than just a little bit of hesitation? But what I found instead was an incredibly emotional and gripping character-driven story that was tender and raw at the same time. And this was definitely another book on my favorites list, and I think I gave this 5 stars. So the next book I want to talk about is the Apocalypse of Elena Mendoza, written by Shaun David Hutchinson. Now, I'm going to tell you straight away that I love Shaun David Hutchinson's writing, and as such, I'm a bit of a fanboy in that regard. Now, that being said, I love the Apocalypse of Elena Mendoza, and felt that the author once again did an amazing job with an intriguing, if not zany, unique plot and a cast of lovable, intertwined characters. So the book centers around a bisexual high school girl named Elena Mendoza, who was the product of a virgin birth. And yes, it is possible. The author actually gives a scientific explanation for it in the book. So anyway, because of this, she's kind of the target of ridicule at school, and many of the students call her Mary. It's also important to note that strange voices speak to Elena regularly, often coming from stuffed animals, corporate logos, or from other inanimate objects, such as one of my favorites, the girl in the tampon box. Now, nobody knows about the voices. Elena has kept them a secret from everybody around her. So the story really takes off at Starbucks, where Elena spots her crush, Winifred Petrie, now known as Freddie to everybody, sitting at a table. Now, Elena's best friend convinces her to walk over and talk to Freddie. So Elena works up her courage and starts walking towards the table. And as she does, a boy from her high school gets up, draws a gun, and shoots Freddie in the stomach. Now, Elena rushes over to her, and out of the blue, the voices suddenly tell her that she can heal Freddie, that she has that ability. Now, Elena, not quite believing the voices, places her hands on Freddie anyway, and lo and behold, the bullet hole disappears, and Freddie is healed. But that's not the only miracle that takes place. The moment Freddie is healed, a blinding flash of gold light comes down from the sky and sucks up the shooter, just like he was being raptured. So from that moment forward, the voices grow more insistent and prevalent, as well as irreverent, as they encourage Elena to go out into the world and heal more people. And if she doesn't, the world will end. But as she soon learns, there appears to be a hefty price to pay for what she is doing, and she begins to question whether that price is worth paying and whether she's doing the right thing. It's also during this time Elena begins to wonder whether the voices do have humanity's best interest in mind, even though they do insist continuously that the goal here is to save the world. I mean, really, at this point, we do not know who or what these voices are. I have to say, though, that at times the voices were hilarious. And even though we had to decide as a reader whether or not to trust them, as they were usually quite vague. But that aside, I found them to be quite side-splitting at times. And I love the snappy banter between them and Elena as they harassed her more and more via the inanimate objects around her. So all in all, I loved this off-the-wall book with its lovable characters and fresh and mysterious plot. Now, this was a moving tale that gave the reader plenty to think about afterward. It was a beautifully written novel, and in my humble opinion, and I, again, gave it 5 stars. So, another interesting book that I read this month was called The Finder by J.E. Lorin. Now, this is a brand new author for me, and the description sounded like something I'd enjoy, so I ended up buying it. It's kind of a gay romance with a serial killer twist. Now, our main character, August, but everybody calls him Augie, can hear voices of victims who call out to him. He hears them in his head, often begging him to find them. The kicker is that the victims can be either dead or alive, and most of the time they're dead. It is only on rare occasions that the victims are still living. So in this way, Augie is able to find the bodies of murder victims, so he's become a valuable asset to the local police department. Now, the story is told from Augie's point of view, so I found it especially fascinating to be in his head when the victims called out to him and to experience firsthand what he undergoes and what he goes through when he finds the body that he's looking for, which is, kind of creepy. It's also worth mentioning that Augie is somewhat broken inside because of a horribly bad relationship that he just got out of. So because of this, he comes across as rather bristly and never allows anyone to get truly close to him. Now, given that we're privy to his thoughts and feelings, we can understand the reluctance to let anybody in. Augie certainly comes with a lot of baggage. Now, Luke, one of the police officers that Augie works with, and who's also quite hunky, by the way, is determined to bring Augie out of his shell. And eventually, their friendship begins to deepen and head towards the romance territory. Now, the romance here is sweet, slow, and tender. Definitely a slow burner, as Augie is still unsure if he's ready to move the relationship to the next level and able to overcome his past. Now, many of the recent bodies that Augie has found are victims of a recent serial killer who is targeting young gay men who happen to resemble August in appearance. Then things become especially dire for Augie once he becomes the main focus of our killer. And he ends up being the one who needs to be found rather than the one who's doing the finding. Now, even though there was a romance between Luke and Augie, I appreciated the fact that this book wasn't filled with one sex scene after another, as you see very often in some LGBT romance books. All in all, it was an enjoyable, well-written book with a gripping storyline. And this is one of those stories that kept me thinking about it for several days after I completed the book. And I think that'll be it for this video. I should get part 2 up within the next day or two. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, I'd appreciate it if you give the old thumbs up, and I will talk to you next time. Bye-bye.